Go to cnbc.com/spotlight.
U.S. tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China are set to take effect tomorrow. Joining us now, Peter Navarro, White House Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing. Peter, it's always good to see you. What's going on? How are you?
Good to see you back in the saddle, my buddy.
Thank you. I'm good. I'm lean and mean. I even lost weight. One thing we hear, even some people come around on this, on tariffs, especially the reciprocal side. One thing I keep hearing again and again, Peter, is why Canada? Why our trading partners in the North? The amount of fentanyl that comes in up there, I don't know, it's literally like, what is it, like 40 pounds last year versus thousands of pounds from Mexico. What's the Canada side of things really about? What are we trying to do there?
What we're trying to do, Joe, is save probably over 100,000 American lives every year. It's interesting to me how we've got just accustomed to hundreds of thousands of Americans dying over the years from fentanyl. But let me explain that it's not just people out there. I mean, everybody's a fentanyl victim, Joe. Everyone in this country, because they either had a son or daughter that died, or they know somebody, or they know somebody who knows somebody. And here's the thing. Fentanyl kills directly. They use it to spike drugs like heroin and amphetamines. But a lot of people don't know this. There were 80 million counterfeit pills that were seized that were things like Ambien, Xanax, Vicodin, oxycodone, all the stuff that people have in their medicine cabinets laced with fentanyl, killing people. 80 million. That's just what they caught. I mean, that's enough to kill a whole country, what's coming over. Now, if you think about the problem, it starts in communist China with the precursor chemicals. It comes in to Mexico, and they make the fentanyl, but they also have these pill presses, so they do the counterfeits. And they're using Canada as a transit hub and secondary point to manufacture as well. So this is a Canada, Mexico, China thing. And the fact that we have such porous borders, particularly during the Biden years, made it even worse. And let's not forget, Canada is also a source of people coming in on the terrorist watch list. So this is a serious problem, and it's as sensible to do what we're doing in the name of saving American lives as when we talk about tariffs in another context, that reciprocity is the most common sense thing, Joe.
Peter, Warren Buffett was weighing in on whether prices go up, or it's kind of like a tax. Do you acknowledge maybe we could see some pressure on prices? And I'm just wondering, how long will you be patient? Will President Trump be patient if that affects, the last thing that he wants is to rail about the Biden administration on inflation and then to have his own problem. We already got, the bird flu and egg prices, et cetera. How long will there be a resolve? Could you see some wavering there on the commitment to tariffs if the stock market were affected, or if inflation were to come back hard?
Well, let's start with Warren Buffett. I was amused to see Mr. Buffett make that statement when, in fact, Joe, I don't know if you remember this, but Warren Buffett wrote the definitive article on why trade deficits are dangerous. Warren Buffett wrote this beautiful article about how if you continue to run trade deficits in America, pretty much foreign countries will own everything you have. And he had it exactly right. He probably forgot he wrote this. In terms of the economics of inflation and tariffs, there's a couple of things to say here. Our experience in the first term, Joe, was very clear. We did not have inflation. We had price stability. When we put the tariffs in on China, steel, aluminum, solar, dishwashers, and all of that, no inflation. And the reason why is a complex chain of macro things that begins with the fact that the exporting countries, which are dependent on our markets, absorb a large share of the tariffs. And then you have the supply chain effects moving around. As you know, Joe, when our trade deficit goes down, the dollar goes up, imports are cheaper, so that brings it down. And in the limit, and this is where President Trump wants to go, we have more and more investment here that raises productivity and real wages, and that mutes inflation as well. And don't forget the 3 Ds. We got deregulation, Doge, and drill, baby, drill. That's the Trump strategy to bring down inflation dramatically. And anything that happens with tariffs, Joe, is second order small. So I don't see the president wavering on any of this, because he knows in order to get to a world in which America is strong and prosperous with real wages going up and factory jobs, this is the path that he's chosen.
So, Peter, when companies say that somebody is going to eat that cost and we might have to pass that to the consumer, you're telling them that you're not going to? I mean, you're saying that there's going to be price stability in the face of increased tariffs.
Well,
what do you tell the companies that have already said, we're going to have to pass this cost on to the consumer at this point?
Ask and answer, Melissa. I've seen, and we've had these discussions over the years. We had them in the first term, Melissa. It's like you bring up inflation, but please, Melissa, ask the question, why are we doing this? It's because the world cheats us. There's a reason why Germany sells 8 times more cars in this country than we sell to them. The reason is their tariff's 10% on autos. Ours is 2.5%. Their VAT tax is 19%, which acts not just as a tariff, but also as an export subsidy. And by the time a $50,000 Cadillac gets over to the German market, it costs $65,000. And a BMW that costs $50,000 in Germany costs in the low 40s. How do we compete with that? One thing, though, but I want to make sure I mention this, because there was some breaking news over the weekend that were good news for home builders, for lumber companies, for insurers. And that was 2 executive actions that the president signed, one on timber and one on lumber. The timber one was a beautiful thing. It's basically recognizing that states like California, elsewhere, have adopted bad forest management practices, which have led to these wildfires all around that not only destroy property and kill wildlife and everything like that, but it can actually kill people, as we've seen vividly. So the president signed a really good order that addresses things like timber salvage, timber thinning, and will help us actually increase the supply of timber and therefore lumber to our home builders. And he also signed a separate action designed to have the great Howard Lutnick, the new Secretary of Commerce, study and investigate the effect of lumber imports, because we've got a lot of countries dumping our lumber into this and hurting states like Maine and the loggers there. So I want to make sure that people saw that little piece of news, because it's big news for insurers, for home builders who will pay less for lumber, and for home buyers as well, and for the lumber companies themselves.
When you talk to the president about trade imbalances, Peter, are you on the same page there that by definition, if we have a trade imbalance, we're losing like billions of dollars? Because we do.
Yes. Yeah, there's no question about that, Joe.
We're consumers, though. We consume in this country. We're able to consume a lot more. We're a wealthy country. It's never going to be. There's always going to be trade deficits. It's never not going to be that
Joe,
way.
Look, Joe, part of the way the cheating works is to encourage our consumption and discourage our savings and therefore our investment. So I reject the idea that we can't get to an equilibrium world where we don't run trade deficits. You have to remember, Joe, if we run $1 trillion a year trade deficit, like we're doing pretty much every year, that's $1 trillion foreigners have to buy America. And pretty soon, what do? They buy our apartments, our housing buildings, the rents are going up. They buy our farmland. They get control of the supply chain of our agriculture. They buy our equity instruments, and that means the capital income goes there.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, they buy Pebble Beach. That's the last thing. Remember when that happened? You think, oh, we got that?
That might not have been the best buy they made, but when they bought Smithfield,
we'll sell it to them at the top.
Supply chain, that was frightening.
We'll sell them to them at the top like that. I mean, we got a good deal when we bought it back. All right, we got to go. We'll have you on again and continue this. See how it comes. Thanks, Peter.
Here for you, brother. Take care.
Coming up, a check on the markets before the opening bell. Squawk Box will be right back.